I know I've mentioned before that Legend of Dragoon was going to be the first RPG I would review for the channel. I was going to review what I've recorded so far, but I lost the footage. I may have deleted it on accident a couple months back and didn't notice. Now, either I could restart from the beginning and record it again, or choose a smaller RPG and work my way from there. I'm going with the latter. Welcome everyone to my review for... Oh boy, here we go. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Raidou Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army for the PS2 on the PS3. I'm not going to repeat the full name for this video until the very end, so I'm just going to call it Soulless Army for the rest, okay? Okay. Soulless Army was released for the PS2 in Japan on March 2nd, 2006, then in North America in October 10th, and finally the rest of the world in April 27th, 2007. An interesting tidbit for Soulless Army is that this is technically the third game under the Devil Summoner name. And it does a few things different compared to the first two. One difference is that the game takes place in modern era instead of the post-apocalypse, and the other is the battle system being more action-oriented instead of turn-based. Let's go back to around 2003. During this time, Kazuyuki Yamai is currently the producer for the Maniacs version of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. He thinks up the concept for Soulless Army during this time. After Nocturne Maniacs is released, team members talk about wanting to work on another Devil Summoner. The concept for this was going to be a small game, enough for a portable version. As time went on though, and more ideas started coming up, this idea was abandoned for a console version. One of these ideas was actually to have the demon follow the player around. There are a couple of other development related things, but I'll mention them later on. For now, we have story and it's gonna take a bit, so here's the time. I have no idea how long it's gonna take, but here you go. I can wait a bit before we start. The story begins with Shohei, which is his name in a prequel novel, going through the trials to claim the title of Raidou Kuzunoha the 14th. Once he finishes the trial, he is told to go defend the capital and is assigned a partner, Goto Doji, or just Goto, who is a cat. Later on, we are now working with a detective called Narumi, who receives a call from a girl to meet at a bridge. Once there, she tells us to kill her. Unfortunately, we don't get more information when we are suddenly attacked by red soldiers who take the girl. Next day, Raidou goes out to find out more about the girl, who we find out is named Kaya Daidoji. We head to her home and find out the curses of all the young women born in the Daidoji household. A bit more searching and we find out more from a classmate of hers after saving her from demons. We go back and search behind the storehouse to find a cell with Kaya's diary, where we find out more of what's been happening. We go to confront Kiyoshi. Unfortunately, we give chase, but we're quickly stopped by someone who summons a demon to keep us busy. As time goes on, Raidou ends up at Kiyoshi's factory, where he ends up meeting with Kiyoshi. Unfortunately, he doesn't get the chance to tell us anything before a Hiruko kills him and escapes. Then we meet the Dark Summoner, Rasputin. After dealing with the demon he summoned, Raidou saves some dock workers and missing cargo from the Dark World. This ends up with a lead that takes him to a church to face off against Rasputin. Once the battle ends, we found out that Rasputin's an android. We then head to the military base to help out Tai in getting an interview with a deserter, which unfortunately ends up with both her and the deserter in the Dark World. Once they're out, we find out about the Super Soldier Project and how it's pretty much an army of the undead. We get the code to enter the secret base where they're building a boat to transport the army, and we find Kaya and General Munakata, who plans to show the strength of Japan with this army. After dealing with the 2-for-1 boss, we take Kaya back to Narumi to decide what to do next. Raidou and Kaya go out exploring the capital the next day, looking for a power source that the military needs for their ship. Unfortunately, Kaya was possessed due to her curse and ends up taking the power source and disappearing. After this, we're asked by Sadakichi, who turns out to work with the Navy, to help out his admiral with his own curse. Once that is done, we get more information about the Super Soldier Project. Mainly that they're reanimated corpses. They also think that the capital is going to be in danger once the project is activated. We next go to Weiden 1, which is hidden as a tower in Sakuradayama. Once we get there, we find that it's covered in Hiruko, and we have to climb them in order to deal with Munakata. We get to the top and he continues his speech from the last time, and again gives us a choice. Raidou declines, and we have another boss fight. One of the more difficult fights so far. When we finally defeat that demon, we end up trapped by a now rebuilt Rasputin and get sent into the void. In the next episode, we see that Raidou and Goto are fine, but some things don't look right to them. Exploring a bit ends up with them finding a similar cat to Goto, and following it ends up meeting with a slightly familiar face. Meet Raidou, a Raidou without the U. After avoiding a fight, we meet with the Herald, who tells us to obtain 3 prisms to return home. We do that, obtain the Amatsu Kagami, and return to the original world. Now that we're back, things still look different. The project is now active and they are now keeping people from leaving or entering the town. Going to the agency sees the office empty except for a note from Narumi. He pretty much says that if we find this note, to stop the investigation and to let him deal with it alone. Meeting up with Sadakichi has him inform us that the Red Soldiers have been attacking the Navy. And returning back to the agency after this, has us meet up with Rasputin again. He mentions that now that the contract is complete, he has no reason to fight with us. But he does mention where Narumi is. Once we meet up with Narumi, he tells us his history with Munakata. He ends up telling us that Munakata always had plans for the army, usually with the super added to the plan. He also wants to talk to him and see just what made him change so much that he's willing to hurt the people in the capital. We finally meet up with Munakata. My mistake, we meet up with Sukuna Hikona, who has been puppeting Munakata this whole time, and they decide to now activate the Soulless God. He's also a very tricky battle, having the ability to completely seal any active demons if he gets the chance. Once he's taken out, we leave and see a very haunting scene. Now we need to deal with the mecha itself. Fortunately, we know someone who was working on a rocket. Unfortunately, we don't have much information to even know if the current rocket is going to work. So we go and find our favorite Russian android. After we get his attention, once we got what we need, we now go into space. Or one of our demons go into space. We select a demon and Goto also goes with it in case anything goes wrong. The demon destroys the satellite powering the mech, and we got a very interesting reveal about Goto. Turns out he's the original Raidou Kuzunoha and has been guiding all the future title holders from the very beginning. Sukuna Hikona is dead, the Soulless god is destroyed, and the capital is safe. Now we can relax and oh hi Kaya. Turns out Kaya was able to make a copy of the mech and now is taking it to the future. We charge up the Amatsu Kagami and we gain access to the last dungeon in the game. We go through time, moving forward through the future, dealing with strong demons and watching what happens in the future. We also have to deal with fighting all the previous bosses with more health. Quick tip: don't fight Mishaguji with a demon with a regen ability. The betrayal is going to hurt a lot. Finally hitting 20XX, we meet up with the possessed Kaya and we have the best boss fight I've done for these reviews. First phase has Kaya herself attacking with the same fighting style as you, but she can heavily damage your demons. The next phase has her summon the ship and start trying to bomb you with artillery. Third phase has the Soulless god in mech form trying to slam you and hitting you with more artillery. The final phase uses many different abilities while also trying to keep you away from it. In the end, we remove the possession from Kaya and return back to the 1930s with Kaya safe and sound. After the credits, we get a bonus scene, wondering if the demon really was from the future or if it was trying to trick us. Narumi gets a call and we go do another job. This was one of the best stories I've enjoyed playing through. I especially liked some of the twists that happened during the story, especially the Rasputin reveal. The final dungeon was a bit of a doozy. I was 16 hours in when I got to the final dungeon, and the average time to beat the game was 24 hours when I looked it up. This dungeon actually took me almost 4 hours to complete, especially with needing to fight the bosses all over again. And if you need to restock on healing items, you need to go back to the beginning of the dungeon to leave. Thankfully, there are a few ghosts that can zap you back to the beginning, but you need to go through the dungeon to get back to where you were. Your reward for beating the game unlocks New Game Plus, which also allows you to activate a new difficulty, and it is no joke. The things that get passed down on your second playthrough are your shop rank, your demon loyalty, and your demon chart. You also unlock a new side quest where you can obtain another demon. Alright, time for gameplay. Unlike other Shin Megami Tensei games, Soulless only goes with an action RPG style over a turn-based RPG style. When you're in battle, you can run around and dodge attacks while also being able to attack at the same time. When you attack, you have a 3-hit combo with your sword, a small dash forward with a stab, and an AoE when you hold down the attack button. You can also summon demons in the middle of battle to help. You can still give commands to your demons to do either specific actions or to let them do their own thing. If you can figure out a demon's weakness, you can do extra damage and stun them. You also do crit damage during this state too. Just be aware that some demons can completely null any damage they take. This includes your sword and the gun. Hey, Futures Auto here. Quick little bit right here that I completely forgot about to even put in my script. During that point where you actually hit the demon with their weakness, you can actually go up to them and capture them with the circle button. Once you do that, you sort of hit a little mini game where it's sort of like a tug of war between you and the demon, where you're pretty much mashing circle fast enough to actually fill up the bar so you can actually capture them. You need to have an empty slot in your inventory or in your like demon roster, and once you get them, you can use them in battle. Now there's a few things you need to worry about. One is figuring out the demon's weakness. 2 would be your level. If your level is higher than the demon, you are eligible to capture it. If not, the tug of war is pretty much impossible to beat. And 3, if the tug of war goes too long, the demon escapes. You also get more tubes as you get more demons, so it's actually good to always have like a few empty slots if you know there's going to be new demons later on. Outside of combat, you run around the city talking with people to continue with the story. Some of them need a bit of extra encouragement to talk about what they're really thinking about. So you summon your demons to figure out what they need. Sometimes you need to encourage them with a bit of ignite, calm them down with some cooldown, or even get their attention with charm. Your demons can even do things outside of that, like finding change on the ground or even demonstrating their hand in acupuncture. If there is an area you can't access normally, how about sending a demon out instead? Selecting solo will let you take control of the demon currently summoned and let them wander around exploring blocked areas and collecting items from red shards. The random encounters doing this are easier, but you now have to deal with the demon's own weaknesses. Thankfully, losing the demon just has you take control of Raidou again. There are 2 shops you'll always be visiting, and in one of them, you'll be purchasing everything from healing meds to ammunition. As you continue purchasing things, you'll get a customer rank increase. Some of these are extra shop items, shop discounts, even extra yen when you sell things. The other shop is the Gomaden, which you can access in the shop. Here we meet Victor and his fusion machine. Besides being able to heal you and your demons and keeping track of what demons you've had before, you'll become here the most for fusions. You can choose 2 different demons and combine them for a completely different demon. Next we got graphics. The backgrounds are pre-rendered, which is fine with me, but what I really love is how they designed the city. Since the game takes place in an alternate modern era, they had to design a Japan that mixes the current era's architecture with the modern design of the Western world. Another like for the game design has to go to the characters. Raidou's design has more of a high school student's uniform with the added flair of the cape. Tai Asakura has a professional reporter look for the era, and Arumi actually pulls off a sort of Sherlock Holmes look. We also have to talk about the demons. All the demons in the game were from the previous title before this game, so they all have just slight updates towards them. The designs on some of the demons aren't very nice though, like the Jack brothers, Ibon Datara, and the Sati. Finally, we come to the soundtrack. It's become one of my favorite game soundtracks so far. It's got jazz music and I love the sound of brass instruments, and also has wind instrumentation, which there is a lot of in the game. Some of my favorite tracks have to be the Detective Agency and the Gomaden. The soundtrack was composed by Shoji Meguro, and he found inspiration from crime dramas to come up with the music. He's known for his guitar-heavy rock music in the series, which has become known as his Mega 10 sound. So during battles, this is what plays. I love the tense feeling I get when I'm in battle, especially in the mid to late parts of the game. The music really fit well when I was surrounded by some of the more deadly demons. Now, I have to bring up an issue, and it mainly focuses on the PS3 version of the game. Unfortunately, during some cutscenes, some sound effects end up playing sooner than they should. So it makes certain scenes awkward when the sound cuts out at the end. I'm actually thankful that there is no voice acting in this game's cutscenes. At first it annoyed me that there isn't any, but the game grew on me as I started seeing it more as a modern take on silent films. Playing it on PS3, knowing that the audio desyncs on some cutscenes, kinda glad that it doesn't have it even more now. Would have ruined the experience for me, if it did. And that is Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Raidou Kuzunoha versus the Soulless army for the PS2 on the PS3. Overall, I actually really enjoyed the game. The beginning was a bit slow, but it did start to pick up during the third episode. Besides the PS3 cutscene issue, the combat is a bit repetitive and it does have the annoying restart from title screen when you lose all your health. It was still fun to go through the game, and I did read that the combat is improved on the sequel. Do I recommend this game? I'm going to say yes, but it's also a bit complicated. 1. The price for a PS2 original disc. I had to look up how much this game was going to cost if someone wanted to play this with original hardware. And I'm not surprised that this game was going to be over $100 on eBay. If you know Japanese and have a Japanese PS2, then go for it. Cause that's actually half the price of what the English version is going for. 2. The PS3. I recorded this on the PS3 and I enjoyed it. You can buy it for $10 on the PS3 store if you have a PS3. If you're also someone who hates when something desyncs and it pulls you out of the experience, well, like I said, some of the cutscenes are going to do that on the PS3 version. If you don't mind the price point for the original hardware, or you don't mind a bit of desync in your cutscenes and you still want to buy it, go ahead. Like I said, I very much enjoyed the game myself and I'm honestly tempted to go back to it because I know I missed out on a lot of things. So if you excuse me, I think I'm going to go back and try to beat it again on that hard mode I unlocked. Or I think I'll play something else.